everyone. You're watching We Heart Therapy, the special series EFT Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Annabelle Bugatti, licensed marriage and family therapist and certified EFT supervisor and therapist here in fabulous Las Vegas. Online, you might see me go by Dr. Belle and my We Heart Therapy stuff. So I am super excited. So we are welcoming back one of the original trainers and crew with EFT. She's been with Sue since the beginning, since the inception of EFT. In fact, she was just saying she's got a photo of her and Sue from 1988, which is amazing. And so we have Gail Palmer, and she is a social worker and a registered marriage and family therapist in Canada. She's an ICEEFT certified EFT trainer. And as I said, she's been in EFT since its inception. So she is incredible. And she was on our show previously talking about getting certified in EFT. And so she is like an amazing, amazing lady. And we're super excited to have you on, Gail. And I don't know if a lot of you guys know that Gail really is one of the heads of our EFFT sector, which is emotionally focused therapy with families, or emotionally focused family therapy. And again, reminding all you guys, like EFT is EFT, it's one model. When we say EFFT or EFIT, that signifies that we're working with a family versus a couple versus an individual. It signifies the bodies in the room and how we might adapt the strategies differently based on who we have in the room, who we're working on. So, but EFT is still EFT, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And at the end of this, we'll absolutely let you know where to find Gail and how to attend one of her amazing trainings. And so, Gail, thank you again. She lives in Canada too, by the way, if I forgot to say that.
Yes, in all the snow. Very different than where you are, Annabelle, but I really appreciate this opportunity to talk with you again. Thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, it's so exciting to be sitting with you and talking about my passion, which is working with families and working with couples that are going through particular life stages, which is what we're going to chat about today.
Yeah. And this is so helpful. So for you guys that are listening and watching, so we often have couples that come into our room and they're coming in for couples counseling, but you'll find that their couples counseling revolves around family counseling issues. So to train in family counseling and EFT, you don't have to necessarily see families in particular, like the children and everything, in order to be treating the family unit. And I think that's an important delineation. And so we're going to talk about basically step family dynamics and couples that come in who have remarried or repartnered. They bring with them children from a prior relationship. And we know from experience that can get very complex and messy and sticky and simultaneously wonderful. And so we're really going to talk about how we would address this in EFT. So it's sort of like an EFT/EFFT combo. And so Gail, if you could sort of start us off by talking about, so pop culture would know this as like blended families or step families. How would we see that in EFT? What do we mean when we're talking about those kinds of family units? And what are the particular, maybe some basic complexities or dilemmas that they're going to be facing and that are common that we see?
Right. So you're really landing on what the essence is in working with step families is that there are attachment dilemmas. And because we, are always working within the attachment channel and emotionally focused therapy, we have a particular lens that helps us understand what step families are, transitioning through. So we use the word step families as opposed to blended, primarily because, actually I had a client that said to me, you know what, Gail, our family isn't blended, it's lumpy, right? And I think that really captures this, the struggle oftentimes that families that are in that particular phase of family life are encountering, that there is this kind of idea that they're going to blend, right, and become one, and
it's going to happen smoothly.
It will happen smoothly, and there won't be any bumps because, hey, I found the love of my life, right? As a mom, I've now had a second or third or fourth chance at love again. And I'm, really optimistic and excited and thinking, of course, my children are going to love my partner. And of course, my partner is going to love my kids because he loves me. And, that tension between the different kinds of relationships, the romantic relationship and that between the parents and the child, is really what we're navigating in that when those families come together.
And I love what you're saying is you're starting to mention sort of the various layers and systems that we're going to be working with, which is part of where the complexities happen, because you have the couple's relationship and them together as a bonded unit, or hopefully bonded with the kids. But then you also have, parent and their own bio kids. You have the step parent, so parent to stepchild. You have the stepchildren together.
Yes.
These are all these various layers, and let's toss some other complex dynamics that might come into this. So I often have couples come in where one of the partners has never been a parent before, and they marry somebody with children, and it's instant family, right? And of course, all of my clients have been very aware of how important that role is, and that they really want to carve a good bond. And then there's the struggle. I think part of it, and you can speak to this too, maybe dependent on if the children are little or if they're teenagers or if they're even adults. If you have teen children who are used to being sort of like in the case of male children, they've been like the man of the house. And now there's a new man who comes in and navigating that territory. Like I go from being kind of I know this isn't an EFT term, but a parentified child to, sort of more of a parent role to now I got to be back in the kid role, and maybe don't know how to be in the kid role. And discipline, like, if kids feel like they're disrespecting the step parent, but the step parent doesn't feel like they have the grounds to say something, or the other parent says you're too harsh, or, Oi.
Yes, you've got it, right? You've really just said a whole lot there, Annabelle, right? About the complexity and about the different kinds of relationships that exist in a step family. And, what happens when you're talking about maybe one of the couples has never had children. And oftentimes what I hear from those particular families is that they never had a chance at being a couple alone, right? They were instant family. And when they talk about that, what they're talking about is loss, right? That loss of, this wasn't part of my dream. I didn't expect to, partner with someone with children. I was expecting to, start life with someone who's on a similar path as me.
More that honeymoon phase.
Right. And all of a sudden, I have to share my partner. I have to share him or her or them with these children that take time and demand attention and might be reacting to the change and the loss that they're experiencing.
And intimate time now has to be shared. Instead of date nights, it's family nights. And, we can't just have intimacy the easy way because we have to worry about children walking in or who's around.
Right. And I think that it's, adjusting not only to the loss of our couple time, our romantic time, or intimate time. It's like, oh, now I'm this person that's supposed to be relating as a parent figure to this child that I have no relationship with, right? This child, whether they're 4 years or 14 years, my partner's got 4 years or 14 years of knowing this child, and I don't. So, how do I navigate my relationship with this child? What does my partner want me to do or expect me to do in terms of relating to this child? And then, all those conversations that go on between the couple, and then also between the parent and the children, right? And what you end up with is sort of an inside-outside dynamic, where the step parent is feeling very much on the outside of this relationship that exists between the parent and their child, and the parent is feeling very much in the middle, right? Yeah. They're torn between their partner that they love and the children that they cherish, and they want, everyone to get along, basically.
And an additional complication that I've seen with this too can be the X factor. We'll call it the X factor. Are they still involved? Are they not involved? And sometimes where the X might have been abusive or, is a particularly bad situation, I've seen the bio parents have a lot of guilt. And so they don't have secure parenting. And so that can lead to a lack of boundaries. And again, you may have the differences on even like basic day-to-day living, like, hey, what are the house rules and how do I get the children to uphold these? And I get to feel bad. And, that adds more complexities. Or I've had, parents come together kind of like the Brady Bunch, and one might have both might have insecure parenting. One might be more avoidant, where the family is more estranged and distant, and the other is more anxiously attached. And so you've got conflict of those styles coming together, and they're like, well, my family just, we're distant from each other. Why is it got to be, just that clash?
Yeah. And so what you get then is that your kids and my kids, and what, it can become a divide when there's these differences, right, in family traditions or parenting styles. And, it can feel like we're not on the same team. So the challenge for the couple is, how do we stay connected, right? Given that we have these differences, we have these different relationships that also matter, right? And that also need space. Right.
And this is a particularly, I love what you're saying right here, Gail, because what kind of pings on my mind is when the couples come in for couples counseling around this, and the step parenting dynamic is triggering the cycle, and you want to track the pattern, but then it feels like the content of the cycle, the step parenting issue, is like another thing. And it's like, how do we know what's that balance when sometimes the content around like step parenting does matter? It's like the EFFT shift. We might be trying to have the system do something differently than the system between just couples. And we're like, have to do both and. So what we're just
you're really speaking to why we do trainings, right? Why we do trainings for step families, because they are unique. And the therapist needs to be knowledgeable about, what challenges that are typical, normal to step family life. Because one of the things that we do in EFT is we validate, we make sense of what's going on. And if we're aware and knowledgeable about the normal development of step family life, we've got this research, we've got this knowledge that actually validates what's happening for the couple, because they end up thinking it's them, right? They end up thinking, hey, I failed it already at one relationship, and this is feeling pretty like dangerous, like the same thing's going to happen. And so their nervous system is on high alert. They're really, sort of looking for threat. And we're able to say, hey, this is what happens. You know what? Step families take time. The research shows that the fastest developing step family in terms of developing an identity as we're a family is 7 years.
Wow.
7 years. right?
Mhm.
Whereas, when families come together, it's usually thinking, well, we're family now and we're going to be together. And when they meet those lumpy challenges, then, they lose their emotional balance. Those cycles start happening that we know about in EFT, right? And we can work with those cycles while normalizing the dilemmas, the attachment dilemmas that they face.
I think that 7 years seems really, wow. I mean, when I think about also the age of the children and, if they're young, then during that time, they're also going to be maybe going through teens, puberty. There's going to add an extra set of complications, or if they're already teens, how they may age out and leave the nest before they form that solid bond together as a family. And I love what you said about looking for threat. And I think with a lot of the step parenting problems I've seen come up with my clients is it's also that we're simultaneously looking at threat and looking for acceptance too, because we want to be accepted by the stepchildren,
Right. Yes. And the parent is feeling guilty, like you said earlier, about the family that the children have known no longer existing, right? That there's this new family formation happening. And it, as a reaction to that, guilt, may then feel that they really protect their children. And so if a step parent comes in, and, sometimes this happens in a way to try to establish themselves as an authority figure, as, this is my house, right? I have a voice here, and come in quickly around discipline, then you're going to have children pushing back from that. So it's not only the dynamic that's happening between the couple, you've got dynamics that are happening, and negative cycles that are happening between the adults, the parent and the children, and the step parent and the children. And
and the new parents and the kids, and if there's shared custody.
Yes.
Sometimes the kids feel guilty if they bond to the new parent, like they're betraying their bio parent.
Yes, especially that, that if they feel any kind of affection for that step parent, it's a disloyalty to the other parent. So they're, in order to stay loyal, they will reject the step parent straight up. And you said a little earlier, what about the age, right? And how does that, of the children, and how does that impact step family life? And what research has shown is that adolescent girls have the hardest time with the step parent coming in. And sometimes what you see is with younger children, say, preschool or school age children, they have an easier time adjusting because they're younger and the loss isn't as great. Whereas adolescents are involved in what happened in the divorce, if there's a divorce, and oftentimes will want to take sides. They feel compelled to just, who's right, who's wrong, which parent was good, who was bad. And then the step parent gets pulled into that in terms of how the adolescents are reacting. So sometimes even when families have come together when the children are young, when those children become adolescents, then it's an issue. It wasn't an issue before, but then it's an issue. It's like, you're not my father. And there's pushback. And the father is saying, hey, I've been around for 10 years. Why?
Yeah. And ouch, that sure hurts.
Yeah, it does hurt. Because, you're mentioning the influence of the ex, and the step parent may be coming in and filling a role that the other parent hasn't filled. And so when they get the pushback from the child who's struggling in adolescence to find themselves, to their own identity, it can feel like very personal.
Yeah. And so in EFFT, as we're talking about, the family systems, what's sort of the goal of like how does EFFT sort of maybe conceptualize the role of the step parenting system, or the step parent to the bio system?
Yeah. Yeah. So what we want to do, because we have these attachment glasses that are conceptualizing what's happening in a step, the distress as attachment dilemmas, is we want to honor the different attachments that exist in step families. So the relationship between the step couple is different than the relationship between the parent and the child. And oftentimes, what I'm doing when I'm working with families, and I'm doing this right now with a family from Turkey that I'm working with, is that I'm seeing the parent and the children separately in separate sessions from the couple sessions. The step couple needs support, right? They need help in how they're stuck places. And the parent and the children need to walk through the loss and the readjustment that is just a natural byproduct of step family life. This family that I'm working with right now has twin adolescent girls, and their angry protest with their mom is that you don't love me. Not only did you get a new partner, but you had a baby, right? And that baby, every time they see their mother with this new child, it's like an abandonment of them, right? So they're in this attachment protest that looks like anger and blame and criticism coming from them to the mother, as a way of, underneath that is all of this pain around losing their mom, right? Because before the new husband and the new baby, the three of them were a team, right? It was mom and the girls. And so that transition in relationship needs space, right? And as an EFT therapist, we want to honor that relationship and help them walk through that loss together. If I brought in the step parent, then I'm not honoring the different relationship. I will bring in the step parent in time, that's the goal. But right now, there's healing that needs to take place in that relationship, if that makes sense.
It'd almost be like stage 2 of EFFT might be where you would bring in the other step parent.
And yeah, maybe more like, back in stage 1 and, assessing how does this family work now, right? Because we've had some healing happening between mom and the girls. And then it's like, okay, how are we as a family, right?
Yeah. It's almost like you do the steps and stages with one of the systems, and then you bring in another system and start back from the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and I mentioned this before, and I think before I ask some more questions, I'd love if maybe you could sort of explain the idea of secure, insecure parenting, because that was like, it makes total sense, but I had never thought about it before I attended one of the trainings, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Right. So, I mean, a parent that is in this sort of insecure place, right, ends up either overreacting, right, in terms of their response to their child. So they might become, sort of hyper-vigilant around the child and try to control and, execute a lot of influence in their child's life.
The helicopter parent.
Exactly. Or as George Fowler says, the snowplow parent, right? So there's an over influence coming from the parent, which blocks their ability to actually attune. What is it that my child needs, right? And this family that I'm working with, what the daughter is saying is, I need you to listen, right? I need you to see me. whereas the mom is kind of trying to, control the girls and tell them how to be, right? Tell them how to behave, tell them how to, react to their new brother and the new husband and all of that, rather than just listen to where they are. The other way a parent may respond is to under respond. So it's kind of like they give up. They say,
like,
"Oh,
yes.
What's that?"
Could that also be like saying yes to everything? Like, I don't want you to hate me, so I'm just going to say yes to everything you want and not set boundaries.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
not too upset because I feel so bad you're in pain.
Exactly, because it's, that they get kind of frozen around that parenting role of setting limits. And they're really afraid oftentimes of losing their children to the other parent.
I think that's like, even outside of the step family dynamic, I feel like that's a common parental struggle. And I love this because this is like a continuation, again, just of attachment science. Like, if we have insecure strategies, it doesn't just mainly exist within one isolated relationship. It's going to play out in a lot of different relationships. So knowing how this shows up even in the parenting patterns and how that can lead to insecure parenting. And I feel like a lot of parents get afraid of losing that bond with their child somehow, or not being loved by their child. And so they feel like, I need to say yes, I need to make sure you're happy all the time. And I struggle to hold the distress and set boundaries and believe, even if you're angry and you're protesting and you're saying hurtful things, that I'm still a good parent. Right. That would be what secure parenting would look like.
Yes. And what we help parents do is to be able to hear the underlying message, right? So my teen girls are asking to stay out till midnight or something with their friends, and they're like 13 at downtown, London, England. And mom is not saying yes to that. But underneath that, right, the attachment message is, do you see me? Do you see how hard it is for me, to make friends, to readjust to a new country, right, to try to fit in, to try to belong, right? That's what's underneath that, give me this kind of conversation, which you often will see with teenagers, right? It's there's a demand for something like a cell phone, or right? And what is it that the child is trying to communicate?
Gail, you just blew my mind. Like, so I'm just thinking, holy cow, and again, I'm just moving all of EFT over, and I'm thinking like, hey, we recognize this when it comes between our couples. This is like speaking to other therapists. Like, if we saw the same behavior couple to couple, we know what it is. And now it's like taking that same thing and moving it over to the parent-child thing. And I'm like, oh, you're right. The attachment message of things like, I want to hang out with my friends all night, or I want a cell phone, or I want the cool pair of jeans, or whatever it is. It's right. I love that attachment reframe of, wanting to fit in, wanting to feel accepted, wanting that sense of belonging among peers. Do you see what it's like for me? Right. Oh, Gail, man, you just blew my mind.
Well, there you go. I'm glad. I'm happy to do that anytime. But it's, it's the other part of it is, if mom rushes to say yes, like you're saying, right, she never slows down enough to really listen to what's happening, right, with her children. And, I think that in step families, that sense of, having let your children down, disappointed them, that sense of regret or grief that you have, having not been able to hold their original family together, because we all know that for most kids, that's, the best option, as long as it's a happy one, right?
Yeah.
Unhappy marriages or partnerships have a really negative effect on children, right? It's not really about the family structure that harms kids, it's parental conflict.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong. For what along those lines, what I remember, the research says that kids whose parents get along and have a good relationship, whether they're married or separated or divorced or re-step parented, that makes the difference. And kids, it's not necessarily whether they're divorced or not, it's how they get along. If the parents get along and the parents are divorced, those kids can be emotionally as well adjusted as kids whose parents stay together and have a happy marriage. But kids can also grow up in a house where the parents are married and unhappily married, and it's very well known in the family unit, and be just as emotionally distressed as kids whose parents divorce and are not amicable. Am I getting that right?
Yes, definitely. That's right on. And when we look at it that way, then our role, right, as EFT therapist is just so important, because that's exactly what we address. We address the negative patterns that the step couple might get caught in, the ex and the parent might be stuck in, and really that's what we target, is the conflict.
And helping them have like a united front together as parents to the kids. And you said something just a moment ago that I really want to touch on that really brings up another very important dilemma. And it was just so beautifully said. And I was thinking about the complexity of being the parent with children who, for whatever reason, whatever good reason, needs to end a relationship, or a relationship is ended, and how difficult that is for children to understand this complex adult dynamic. And, that's where that security can kind of dip, where it's how do I hold my own sense of security, knowing I did the best I could and that this was a tough situation, and not blame myself as I'm a terrible person or a terrible parent because the marriage ended or something, even though I know my kids in their grief and, not inability to understand this complex adult situation, because again, they are kids. How do I hold that frame of security and be with them in their grief without absorbing the blame myself? And yeah, I'm terrible because I ended this relationship.
Then we look to our partner, because I think that's a natural consequence of, going through a divorce and then repartnering. I mean, as parents, we don't outgrow our need, right? For, someone to comfort us, to reassure us, to help us navigate those times when, yes, naturally we end up feeling like we failed, like we've let our kids down. I think that's a natural feeling. But if we have nowhere to go with those feelings, right? If we're in conflict with our new partner, and what we're going to get from our new partner is, well, if you just would discipline your kids better, you wouldn't feel that way.
Yeah. It's like that behavioral intervention we see with couples. Well, if you would just take out the trash more, or you would just do this, then I would be happy. Then we wouldn't have problems, right?
Right. So, it's really about being able to get that emotional support from the partner, because the parent is going to naturally feel guilty. The step
Can I
parent
turn towards you with my heart and be seen, be loved, be supported, be reassured. You're not a terrible mom. This is normal. And even as we're talking about this, I think of even another complexity that kind of sprouts out of that I've seen, where, couples can struggle with kind of parsing out this difference, where part of the grief process where the kids might reject the other partner just on the basis of not my dad or not my mom. And they haven't even really seen, they haven't really gotten to know the other partner yet. And so I've seen it where if the kids haven't quite bonded yet, the parent, that can start to erode the bond between them, because the parent is thinking, oh, well, how can I turn toward you when my kids don't like you? And maybe, again, that means some failure, like my kids don't like you. Right. And how is this going to work? When in fact, it's not even necessarily about the kids not liking that partner. It's part of the grieving process, part of the transition process. And so, oi.
Yeah, and sometimes, they're in this like, I have to choose, right? I have to take sides here. I have to be loyal to my kids. My kids come first. And, it's not about an either or, it's an and. But when we get stuck in dynamics, it becomes very rigid and it can become very narrow, where it's like, I have to choose. And parents will choose their kids often, or not, or choose the new partner. That happens also. And then the kids feel abandoned.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the heart of like maybe the core struggle that I see is when that rigidity sets in. One will circle the wagons around one system or the other, and then the other system feels like it loses. Like, parent may form an alliance with their bio kids, and step parent feels left out, or parent turns towards new partner and the kids feel left out, or maybe like the new children feel favored, like the new bio children of this couple feel favored over the step children. And
right. And there's a natural, of course, the new bio child is favored. They have two parents that are together, right? It's a setup. Of course, the other children are going to feel jealous and resentful towards that.
And they're little and are teeny and very dependent also, which complicates the emotional factor for the other kids who don't quite understand. Like they kind of don't get it, because emotionally it's like, oh, what about me?
Of course. Yes. So, as EFT therapists, we have a way of understanding that. As learning about step families helps us then not pathologize, right? Because I think that's the thing that can happen with step families, that even our language, right, where we say broken home, intact family, right, as opposed to a first family and a new family or a step family. So, I think.
Would we ask the family what term they'd like to use, or would we, is it more like on our benefit to attachment reframe it as first family, step family versus broken home? Couples may describe it as broken home, but I can definitely understand how that would seem very pathological or judgmental. And so I love what you're saying here about that use of language.
Right. Yeah. And what are we bringing as therapists, right? In terms of our own experience and our own life experience and our own judgments.
Sure. I think the culture has shifted too, where, that used to be sort of the language that might have been used, but nowadays, in attachment terms, is that how we would re-identify that as first family or bio family, step family? What would you say, Gail?
Right, because it's a different way of, it's not about success or failure, right? And that other language does sort of infer that, right? It's implicit. Broken means that you failed. Blended means that you need to blend. Some families don't blend. There is these sort of compartments that exist within a family unit. It depends on the developmental stage of the kids when the family forms. And, I think that we need to help parents, right, that are struggling with their own sense of failure, with step parents that are feeling so on the outside and inadequate, and, do they belong, right? They're feeling like they don't belong. And how do they respond to that? And who do they turn to? Right. So when we're working with a step couple, we're really helping the parent support the step parent in that sensation of being on the outside, right? And really, empathizing with that position, being that safe space and safe place for their partner to go to, and the step parent supporting the parent in their parenting role, because it's still theirs. Sometimes with a new step parent coming in, the parent might try to react to that outside position by bringing the step parent in as an equal parent. And that's kind of a setup.
Is there, I mean, is there a point, I guess maybe again, this might depend on the family and the age of the children, but is there a point where the step parent would be seen as an equal parent in terms of like, I'm able to set boundaries with the kids or hold them accountable for not doing chores or something? But I mean, maybe are there levels, or this is something the couple has to navigate together, what they're comfortable with? Like maybe I can set boundaries or hold them accountable, but primary discipline comes from the bio parent, or?
I think it's about leadership, right? That the parent is the leader in terms of how the children will be raised. And, you know, the step parent is a team member and another adult.
I can see how hard that would be to do if the couple relationship is not strong around parenting. If there's insecure attachment there, then of course it's because you're dealing with multiple systems, one is always going to bleed into the other. So it's like, if I can't turn to you and trust in you also as the primary leader to set boundaries that I may need to feel respected, just as we navigate the business of living together in a new home, and wanting to respect, and not take over parenting.
There's going to be a difference, right? It comes back to the difference that the step parent typically is, sees that these kids need more discipline, that, and the parent, when it's your own children, it's kind of like you give them a pass lots of times. And that just, I think, comes from the difference in the relationship. So that kind of can really set up a polarization in the couple, right? That they, are looking at, they're responding to their own kind of take on things. Like my father of the family that I'm working with, the stepfather, is like he's shaking his head at these girls, like, what is wrong? Because he's a father of a 2-year-old, right? He's never had teenagers before. These aren't his teenagers. It's harder for him to have compassion and understanding, right? He's looking at, and the other dynamic is he's wanting to protect his 2-year-old from these teenagers that are, rejecting of him. And so that, again, it's a complexity, but what helps us is the attachment bond. We're always working to secure that attachment bond between the new couple because they are the foundation of this family. However, they don't share in the joy of having these stepchildren together. It's a difference.
So what are we sort of aiming for? So, and I just, my client that was supposed to come in is rescheduled, come up with an emergency. So I have a little bit more time if you do, which is great. So from beginning to end, so it sounds like there's multiple kind of goals that we're working on. One, if we're seeing just the couple and they're not bringing their children or don't intend to bring their children in for family therapy, seems like we really want to help them come together as a couple, as a secure base for each other and for the children, and help increase secure attachment, right? Both in the couple and as a parent. And then you're saying in the parenting roles, we want to help the step parent support the bio parent in parenting duties, and help the bio parent support the step parent in the bonding process, facilitating that bond, or?
Well, and also just empathizing and supporting them in being on the outside, right? That they aren't going to feel equal to the parent in their relationship with the children. And that can feel really bad. And that can feel like you don't belong. And it can feel like you're really sort of watching as an observer family life that goes on between the parent and the children. And to be able to talk about the feelings, right, that might get stirred up by that. Do you really still love me? I see your face just light up when your daughter comes in the room. And you know what? I don't see that with you and me anymore. And that hurts, right? So being able to have those conversations and understand them, right? We can understand them, keeping that step family frame, that's normal. That's what happens in step family life. It's not that he doesn't love her. He has a love for his children that's a little different. And he may not see his kids all the time. And right, he sees his partner all the time. So just being able to make sense of the emotional responses and help create that secure base for the couple that they can turn to each other, because it's the support that comes there that helps the family survive, right? Step families are challenged by conflict over kids, right? Why do they end up in divorce? Oftentimes it's conflict over kids. So when we're helping the step couple turn to each other, right, for reassurance, we validate, we make sense of those struggles as normative, right? Then that takes away the sense of shame, the fear of failure that might be going on. And again, sort of strengthens that bond between the couple.
Man, so I see just how multi-tiered this could be, even just with the couple's relationship is, like what you said is, often what might have led to the decay of the previous relationship might have been conflict over couple or over kids. And I'm thinking, gosh, so these parents could be coming in as a couple and getting the couples therapy that probably would have helped them before. So we're helping them do things in this relationship that they've never done before in other relationships with secure attachment. So we're building that strong bond, that ability to turn towards each other and be a team, even as a couple. And then we're adding to that, we're feathering on top of that, this dynamic with being that with the kids and for the kids and how to come together with the kids. Boy, that's a lot.
You sound tired.
Sounds exhausting.
Yeah. But, the motivation is the love, right? The great love. Because that's really what, we really lean on, is that this couple has found each other, right? And usually they found each other at times when maybe they gave up on ever finding the kind of love that they're experiencing. So, we really privilege that, celebrate that, and, turn that on as a way of helping them, face the challenges. Because when they have each other, they can do it. They can do it, and they can get through it.
I'm curious, this might be a funny, silly question, but does step family forming process, does it follow a similar pattern to, the studies on group formation, the forming, storming, and norming phases?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't really know about that one. It could be. We could probably look at that. Certainly, what we're going to see clinically is that families will show up within the first 2 years of them coming together. That's usually what happens, is our couples will come at that time. So I think that's that initial phase. And, then there could be like developmental, like the birth of a new baby, or the kids are now teenagers, or now they're leaving home. And, that might again create a new challenge. And certainly that's what happens in step family life, that every sort of life event brings it to the center again. A wedding, right? Where do people sit? right? And, at graduation, every kind of celebration that happens naturally in family life brings to the forefront that, this is a new family, it's a step family, there's, exes, and right, how do we navigate all of that? And I think that when we have that secure, it's what Sue says, what's shareable is bearable, right? When we have that secure bond, it helps us navigate that. Because we have
yeah. And, I think about sort of the extra complication of the X, and, sort of, and I know you've taught some workshops about like high conflict divorces and custody cases, and that can certainly add an extra layer of distress if there's like parental alienation going on with an ex partner who maybe isn't interested in participating in a healthy family dynamics. And
right.
so that really increases the need for that security between the new couple as they have to navigate. And it's so hard on the kids too, especially if the parenting boundaries aren't consistent from house to house. Like if, the other bio parent, the ex, has a different set of rules. Maybe they're more strict, or they're really loose, or, they may be prone to their own kind of acting out behavior, like anger or abuse or alcohol, and that desire to, how do we protect the kids, but we have to share custody, and how do we do this?
And I would think that all of that is pretty natural because they got a divorce for a reason. So, yeah, I mean, that's, I think we can come to expect that, but the ex can be like a threat. And what is really critical for the step couple is that they have a joint way of, like they're together on how they're going to respond to the ex. When step couples get challenged is, they'll have conversations like, oh yeah, so when she asks for something, you jump, but boy, I ask for anything and there's no response, or all the, like our money and things that really would make our life more, valuable, like we'd be able to enjoy more, we'd be able to, give our kids more, goes out the door to the ex, and I resent that. And so all of those kinds of conversations need to be able to happen between the step couple in a way that actually they come together as a team as to how they're going to deal with this, right? Because if they get divided about it, the external threat of the ex just gains more power. And so I think it is often part of step family life, unfortunately. But again, that having those conversations together in a way that doesn't get them stuck in a negative pattern, right, which is what we're helping them do, is what then equips them to, problem solve and say, okay, this is how we're going to, right, help each other with this one.
Yeah. So when we're working from beginning to end, so when what would the different phases of EFT look like when you're working with the step family dynamic? Like, I mean, obviously stage 1 would be de-escalation. What does stage 2 look like in this case?
Well, again, it's similar to what we would talk about generally in EFT, certainly with the couple being able to express those vulnerable feelings rather than react to them to each other, and be able to be heard around that. You may have a step parent that, is going to react based on their attachment style, right? Do they over respond, right, by coming in heavy as a disciplinarian, or do they, avoid and check out? So being able to get underneath those reactive ways of protecting themselves, to talk about, right, the emotional hurt that's there, or the pain or the fear that's there, so that they can be there for one another. So we would use the same, decision making that we would use in EFFT, right, with couples, beginning with the withdrawer and then softening the pursuer. However, we have that extra layer of understanding, what is normative in step family life. And it may help us also when we're in stage 2 to be able to conjecture around some of the vulnerabilities that are associated with being a step parent or being a parent, and help them put language around what's happening on the inside. So that would be stage 2 with the couple, and then consolidation would look like bringing, the whole family together if you're involved with the kids, or just consolidating with the couple. And then with the family frame, it's the same, right? We want, in stage 2, we want the child to be able to express their vulnerability directly to the parent, right? Parent to be able to respond in an effective way. My family that I'm working with right now, the mother's able to hold space, but she can't really move in with comfort and support because of her own block, right? So I need to work more with mom around what's happening on the inside for her. When she feels like she's failed and she's totally helpless in relationship to them. So, I'm still in stage 1 with them. And when mom is more available, she'll be safer for the girls to then be able to express more directly, more clearly, really the loss that they're experiencing. Right now, it's a mixed message, lots of anger mixed in there.
Yeah. So, and we've sort of like said it in so many words already. So the end goal would be a securely attached step family and all the subsystems within that.
Right.
What would, if you could, so just sort of round out as our wrap up, what would we say the securely attached step family would look like?
So a secure step family would have be able to hold these different relationships, right, in a way that honors them all, that gives space for the parent and their children to have a special relationship that sometimes the step parent isn't involved in, but at times is, right? And
where it's not a threat.
It's not a threat. There's a flow, right? That I can move between the people I love, and it's okay. And that
everybody has a good bond, but the bonding between different family members doesn't feel like a rejection or a non-bond to me.
Right. And the children feel the same, right? I can actually like my stepfather and not feel like I'm being disloyal to my own father. And yeah, so the lack of threat, right, I think is well said, Annabelle. That's really what, being able to move through the challenges of step family life to get that security.
Yeah. And part of that security would be able to, be attuned to the children, to each other, have the children be able to express their vulnerabilities, their pain,
right.
And have the parents be able to set the boundaries they need to as appropriate without their own sense of security collapsing, their belief in themselves as a parent, and to have bonding happen between the systems, everybody, the whole system and the individual, the subsystem.
Right. Yeah. And that we're okay. We're okay as a step family, right? I can have families that, relationships that I have a relationship with my mother and her family, and a relationship with my father and his family, and it's all okay, right? That there isn't a sense of I have to choose, or there's a competition, and there's winners and losers, that there's room for all.
Yeah. Like instead of like circling the wagons and someone being left out, we're all circled within the wagons together.
Right. Nice. Yeah, that's great.
That protection of love.
Exactly. Beautiful.
Awesome. Well, Gail, so you are amazing, and you have a book. It's the Emotionally Focused Family Therapy book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jim Furrow is the lead author, and myself and George Fowler, Lisa Palmer Olson, and of course Sue Johnson co-authored this text on family therapy. So it really covers the model and applying EFT with families. And like you said earlier, it's all EFT. However, we tweak it to fit the parent-child relationship.
Yeah, and so folks can buy this book on Amazon, right? And I'm pretty sure Amazon's available in most countries. Has the book been translated into any other languages?
German, and there's work on another language, what I'm blanking on right now.
Okay.
But it's been translated. Yeah.
So folks want to find you if they want to attend one of your EFFT trainings. I know we're going to have you here in Vegas, so you can find us at snbeft.com. But if they want to find you, attend an EFFT training, or maybe invite you to come out to their community to host a training, how would they find you? How would they follow you? How would they get in touch with you?
Okay, so the trainings are typically listed on the ICEEFT website, ICEEFT.com. There's also a family therapy training tape on that website. And I also have a website, Gail Palmer, EFFT.com. So Gail, Gail, Palmer, EFFT.com. And you can contact me through there. And yeah, I'm always passionate to talk about families. It's and step families, because I've lived it.
Yeah.
And, I think that personal experience of, and of course we became a step family when my girls were teenagers. So yes, I've lived step family life and continue to. So I think that experience makes a difference.
Yeah. And so do you have any other books or projects that are available that folks could know about?
Well, certainly I'm always, interested in taping and coming up with training tapes, which is particularly challenging for families, because you have children that, need to be protected. So that is my goal, to be able to do that, and just focus more time on applying EFFT to step families, to adult children is another topic that I really like to talk about. So all of that is really where I spend my time these days.
Right. Excellent. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I will make sure to put a link to Gail's websites or email, and the link to the book on Amazon in the description for the video. If you're listening on Spotify or podcast form, you might just have to rewind and write it down. But thank you again, Gail, so much for being with us today. And definitely, guys, invite Gail out to come to your community if you haven't yet had an EFFT training. Certainly, we're bringing her to Vegas, and we're going to do basically a whole 2 days on this very topic. And so it's going to be really amazing. So if you have any variation of the EFFT topics that you'd like to invite her out to present, shoot her an email, and she's really amazing. So I attended one of her workshops in Reno, and I was like, I need more. This is awesome. So
great. Thank you. It's been lovely. Great conversation, Annabelle. It's lovely talking to you.
Thank you. And thank you again so much for being on. And as always, guys, you can find me here on We Heart Therapy. Southern Nevada EFT is my local Las Vegas EFT chapter that I lead. And I'm also part of the Success and Vulnerability team with George Fowler, Ryan Rana, James Hopkins, and the Emma House. And so super excited you guys haven't checked us out there. And We Heart Therapy is now offering retreats and conferences. So you can check out wehearttherapy.com and look that up. And make sure that you guys, if you're not a ICEEFT member, if you are an EFT therapist, so many valuable resources. If you go to ICEEFT, ICEEFT.com, I'll also put the link to that in here. You can go and take the externship. You can take the basic trainings. There's always a list of ongoing trainings around the globe, actually, available. And there's, if you're a member, you also get discounts on the training videos and training tapes. And a lot of them now are on digital download, which is amazing since a lot of us don't have DVD players anymore. So make sure that you guys check that out. And if you haven't subscribed to We Heart Therapy, make sure that you hit subscribe, and more videos are on the way.
Don't forget to buy my book, Using Relentless Empathy in the Therapeutic Relationship, Connecting with Challenging and Resistant Clients for Helping Professionals. Available on Amazon or on my website, www.drbugatti.com.